Hello, citizens of the Captain Disillusion subreddit. It's me, Alan the Intern. The Captain has made an addendum video to his episode about interlacing. If you haven't seen it, check it out. But if you have, you know that it was mainly based on a comment that was left on this very subreddit. It was detailed but concise, and it brought interesting points, and it had a respectful tone. It was a good example of the audience helping a creator make his content better for them. But besides the Captain deciding to make a video because of it, the comment itself didn't really get a lot of attention in the thread that it was posted. In fact, there was only one reply to this comment, and it was posted by a Redditor called Spunky, and it read as follows. Yep, this video is complete bullshit. Interlacing was used to halve the broadcast signal bandwidth, not to correct flicker or overlap. So, since the Captain did a response video to the original comment, he asked me to make a video of my own to address this reply comment. So really the rest of this video is just for Spunky. And the rest of you guys, thank you for watching, and you can turn it off now. Hi Spunky. I guess I'll address your comment in two parts. I'll do the second part first. Interlacing was used to halve the broadcast signal bandwidth, not to correct flicker or overlap. It's true, if you send half an image, then you send the other half later, you have used less bandwidth or more time, whichever way you want to look at it. But I think the thing that's important to remember about the bandwidth of a television signal is that it wasn't handed to us by aliens. Right? We designated the amount of bandwidth we needed for the kind of signal that we wanted to send. The goal was to send 525 lines 30 times every second. They wanted 30 frames per second. They actually wanted 24 frames per second. All the moving images were 24 frames per second, but they had to bump it up to 30 because AC power cycles at 60 hertz, and you know the drill. But we gave it the amount of bandwidth that it needed. And in other countries with other systems, like PAL, where there's a different frame rate, but there's 100 lines more resolution on every single frame, they need more bandwidth to transmit that. So they used more bandwidth. They used 8 megahertz. But for us, the 6 megahertz that we use was enough. As you're sending the information, at the end of 1/30th of a second, you have delivered all 525 lines of one frame, right? It doesn't matter if you're sending all the even lines first, followed by all the odd lines, or you're sending them all consecutively. In 1/30th of a second, they all get delivered. The problem only starts when you get it transmitted and it's in the TV now. The challenge is displaying it, and that's what the Captain's video was really focusing. Transmission and the bandwidth wasn't really in the scope of the video. He was talking about how our images created and displayed. Because it's not a film projector and it's displaying sequentially, refreshing it only 30 times a second is very slow. I think you and I agree on that. That looks extremely flickery. It needed to be faster. It needed to be double. And from our modern perspective, when we look at that, we say, what's the problem really? Because refresh rate is not the same as frame rate. If they needed it to refresh at 60 hertz, but only show 30 frames a second, why didn't they simply display every frame twice? And the answer is, they would have loved to do that, but the technology wasn't possible because there was no RAM, there was no way to store a frame and buffer it. It had to be displayed as it comes in. The signal was responsible for the refresh rate. So the only way to display the same frame twice in a row would have been to send the same frame twice in a row. And I think that would be a crazy, redundant, insane waste of information. I guess in a backwards way, that constitutes saving bandwidth. But even if you look at it that way, you say that this saves half the bandwidth. But is that really true? Because as I understand it, the 6 megahertz is not entirely filled with the image raster. There's like some dead space, and then there's the raster, and then there's the audio, and then there's some dead space again. And in fact, only 4.5 megahertz is dedicated to the raster. And remember that even the 525 lines of the raster are not all picture. Only 486 lines are the stuff you see on the screen, and the rest of the lines are used for keeping it in sync, putting closed captioning in there, whatever they used to store in there over the years. So really, even if you decided to do the crazy thing of sending duplicate frames or doubling the entire frame rate, you wouldn't need to double 6 megahertz. You would need to add like 4 or 4.5 at worst. So to summarize, looking at it from the perspective of bandwidth is backwards in my opinion, and the hypothetical bandwidth savings with interlacing aren't half. And to say that interlacing wasn't designed to correct flicker or any kind of display issues is not right. The interlacing principle was invented before there were any television standards, when they were figuring out how to make a screen work. So added together, it seems to me like that makes the whole second half of your comment not correct. Or as you might put it, that makes the second half of your comment bullshit. So now I want to turn to the first half of your comment where you say, yep, this video is complete bullshit, meaning the captain's video on interlacing. Now, let's say hypothetically for a moment that the second half of your comment wasn't bullshit. I mean, we just spent all this time establishing how it is bullshit, but let's say that it wasn't. And you were right that the captain got this one part wrong. The captain mentions several other ideas and points and concepts in that video, all of which add up to explaining interlacing. So unless you researched every single one of those other things and you found them all to be incorrect, it would be inaccurate to say that the whole video is complete bullshit. Clearly there are non-bullshit parts to it. And that, to me, makes that first part of your comment also incorrect, and therefore also bullshit. So finally, to zoom out and look at your comment as a whole, seems like the first part of your comment is bullshit, and the second part of your comment is also bullshit. And by the transitive property, that means that your entire comment is, in your vernacular, complete bullshit. So to me, it's kind of fascinating from a psychological perspective how this comment, which set out to call a thing complete bullshit, was actually just projecting its own complete bullshitness onto something that wasn't bullshit at all. So for what it's worth, I hope this helps you in formulating future decisions about what to put in a comment, or whether to even leave a comment, or whether to even hang out on certain subreddits. So, good luck and thank you for watching.